When the Arcturian Scientific Expedition arrives to study Earth's abandoned ruins, they discover humanity has evolved into a sophisticated underground civilization that challenges everything they believe about technological progress and survival. Chief researcher Zyra 9 pressed her photoreceptors against the quantum imaging display for the third time in what humans would call an hour. The readings couldn't be correct. She'd spent 12 cycles studying Earth's surface, cataloging the overgrown ruins of what her species had assumed was another failed civilization. But these energy signatures, Vanks, she called to her assistant, who was methodically organizing specimen containers nearby. Analyze these subsurface readings. Tell me I'm not experiencing sensor malfunction. Vanks glided across the research vessel's observation deck, his crystalline form catching the pale sunlight filtering through Earth's thick cloud cover. The equipment was calibrated this morning, Chief. What seems to be? Exactly, 09 said, her outer membrane rippling with excitement. That's not geological activity. Those are contained fusion reactions. Hundreds of them, all carefully shielded. The Arcturian scientific vessel hovered silently above what their historical records labeled Northern Continental Mass 3, conducting what should have been a routine survey of another dead world. Instead, they'd stumbled upon something unprecedented. Look at the distribution pattern, Vanks said, his voice modulator barely containing his agitation. These energy signatures form a network. They're connected by something our sensors can't quite identify. Zyra 9 expanded the display, revealing a vast web of energy signatures stretching across the continent. What they'd initially dismissed as natural cave systems and collapsed infrastructure now appeared to be something far more deliberate. Chief, one of the junior researchers called from the atmospheric analysis station, I'm detecting trace elements in the surface air vents. They're artificial atmospheric processors, but like nothing in our database, they're actually more efficient than our own designs. 09 felt her scientific training battling with her growing excitement. The Arcturian Science Council had sent them to study Earth as part of their ongoing catalog of failed civilizations. The surface showed all the signs. Abandoned cities reclaimed by vegetation, no visible technological activity, no response to standard contact protocols. Every analysis had indicated Earth was another dead. But now, Vanks, initiate full spectrum analysis. I want every sensor we have focused on those subsurface structures, and send an immediate update to the classification. She paused, her membrane rippling with the magnitude of their discovery. Classification: living world, technology level unknown, possible Type 7 subterranean civilization. As her crew scrambled to comply, Zyra 9 studied the endless streams of data flowing across her displays. Somewhere below them, hidden beneath Earth's scarred surface, an entire civilization had evolved in. The question was, had they hidden from the galaxy intentionally? Or were they simply waiting for someone to look deep enough to find? A new alert flashed across her display. Something large was moving beneath them, rising through the layers of rock and soil. First contact, it seemed, was about to begin on humanity's terms. The Arcturian vessel's central chamber hummed with nervous energy as the research team debated their next steps. Traditional first contact protocols seemed woefully inadequate for this unprecedented situation. Our records indicate no civilization has ever successfully maintained a subterranean society of this, senior anthropologist Kren 4 insisted, her bioluminescent patches flashing with agitation. The energy requirements alone should be impossible. We must approach this with extreme caution. Zyra 9 studied the latest scan results flooding their displays. The tunnel networks they discovered defied conventional and instead of uniform construction patterns, they followed organic paths that somehow maximized structural integrity while minimizing energy expenditure. It was as if the builders had worked with the planet's geology rather than imposing their will. Look at these defensive systems, Vanks said, highlighting a series of overlapping energy fields. They're not just blocking our probes, they're redirecting the energy. Every scan we attempt is being absorbed and repurposed. His analysis nodes flickered with what Zyra 9 recognized as professional admiration. Their third probe attempt had ended more dramatically than the first. Instead of simply failing, the device had been caught in some kind of containment field and carefully deposited back on the surface, along with what appeared to be a handwritten note in perfect Arcturian. Please stop sending probes. We'll contact you when we're ready. That's what concerns me most, Grenfor continued. They've been watching us study Earth's surface for 12 cycles. They've learned our language, analyzed our technology, and chosen not to reveal themselves until now. What else have they been observing? A sudden shift in the sensor readings interrupted their discussion. The massive underground movement they detected earlier had resolved into a clear path. Something was ascending through the layers of bedrock, but not by drilling or excavation. The rock itself appeared to be impossible, Venks whispered. All 4 analysis nodes focused on the readings, their phase shifting the atomic structure of the rock, but the power requirements for that would— Look at the energy signatures, 09 interrupted. They're not using brute force. Somehow they're manipulating the natural mineral structures to create temporary phase change. It's elegant, beautiful. The ship's alert system chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. The message was brief, and again in perfect Arcturian. We're sending up a delegate. Please prepare your primary observation deck for 6 human representatives. We suggest deactivating your quantum imaging systems. They tend to interact poorly with our phase shift technology. 09 felt her outer membrane rippling with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Everything about this situation challenged their most basic assumptions about technological development. These humans hadn't just survived underground, they'd thrived, developing technologies that worked in harmony with natural systems in ways the Arcturians had never considered. Prepare the observation deck, she ordered, trying to project more confidence than she felt. And for the love of science, someone figure out if our standard atmospheric mix is compatible with human biology. The last thing we need is to accidentally poison Earth's secret civilization during first. As her crew rushed to comply, Zyra 9 watched the mysterious ascending signal draw. In all her cycles of research, she'd never imagined discovering a civilization that had chosen to evolve beneath the surface, rather than reach for the stars. She had a feeling their entire understanding of advanced technology was about to be challenged. The observation deck's atmosphere crystallized with tension as the rock face below them began to shimmer like heat waves over desert sand. First, a circular section of bedrock ceased to be solid, transforming into something that resembled liquid glass. Through this translucent portal emerged 6 figures that defied every prediction in the Arcturian First Contact Protocol. The human delegation didn't wear environmental suits or carry visible technology. Instead, they wore flowing garments that seemed to shift colors with each movement, adorned with intricate patterns that Zyra 9's sensors identified as mathematical equations. Leading them was a tall woman with silver-threaded dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of— Greetings, Arcturian researchers, she said in their native tongue, her voice carrying perfectly despite the deck's size. I am Director Amara Blackwood of the North American Geodome Network. We apologize for maintaining our camouflage during your surface surveys, but we needed to understand your intentions. 09 felt her outer membrane rippling with barely contained questions. Before she could voice any of them, Amara gestured to her companions. My team includes Rajesh Kaur, our phase shift engineer, Professor Dante Torres, biosphere architect, Isabella Romano, quantum ecologist, Commander Jamal Hassan, defense systems coordinator, and Dr. Zara, cultural integration specialist. Your mastery of our language is unexpected, Venks managed, his analysis nodes whirring with activity. Dr. Romano smiled. We've had automated observation posts in orbit for centuries, plenty of time to study passing vessels and learn from their communication. Would you like to see why we've chosen to remain hidden? Without waiting for a response, she raised her hand. The deck's floor became transparent, revealing a sight that left the entire Arcturian crew speechless. Below them stretched a vast network of interconnected geodomes, each one a self-contained ecosystem. Crystalline structures channeled natural light through a series of sophisticated prisms, creating perfect growing conditions for vast agricultural. Transportation pods moved through phase-shifted tunnels, their paths following mathematical patterns that somehow mimicked natural water. Welcome to New Aurora, Director Blackwood said, pride evident in her voice. When the surface became increasingly unstable due to climate shifts 3 centuries ago, we didn't try to fight it. Instead, we adapted. Evolved. Learn to work with Earth's natural systems rather than against them. Dr. Cower stepped forward, his dark eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Your scanning attempts helped us calibrate our phase shift field. We've been waiting for a research vessel to notice the energy signatures. Most passing ships just catalog the surface ruins and move on. But the energy requirements. Kryn 4 began, her scientific training warring with what she was seeing. The infrastructure needed. Professor Torres interrupted gently. You're thinking in terms of conventional power generation. Watch this. He pressed his palm to the deck's surface. Instantly, the view shifted to show a vast network of crystalline roots extending through the Earth's crust. We don't generate energy in the traditional sense. We cultivate it. These geological formations are actually engineered fungi that process geothermal energy and distribute it through natural networks. The same principles that allow trees to transport water against gravity, adapted to move energy. Commander Hassan gestured to another section of the vast underground expanse. Our defensive systems follow similar principles. We don't block attacks, we redirect them, using the Earth's natural electromagnetic fields as guides. It's more efficient than any artificial shield. Zyra 9 struggled to process what she was seeing. These humans hadn't just survived underground. They'd created an entirely new paradigm of civilization, one that worked in harmony with natural laws, instead of trying to overcome them. Every piece of their technology seemed to blur the line between artificial and organic. This is just the beginning, Director Blackwood said softly, watching the aliens try to comprehend what they were seeing. Would you like to come below? There's so much more to show you. And so many questions I'm sure you have. Though I warn you, her eyes twinkled with amusement. The answers might challenge everything you think you know about technological progress. The Arcturian research team exchanged glances. They had come expecting to study ruins. Instead, they were about to get a masterclass in reimagining civilization itself. The descent into New Aurora challenged every preconception the Arcturian team held about underground habitation. Their transport pod moved through phase-shifted stone as smoothly as light through crystal, guided by what Dr. Carr called geomagnetic flow patterns. Your surface ruins, 09 began, watching bioluminescent algae formations light their path. Their deliberate camouflage. Director Blackwood nodded. Part of our adaptive strategy. The ruins tell a story most spacefaring races expect to find another civilization that destroyed itself. It's amazing how few look deeper once they've found evidence that confirms their expectations. The pod emerged into a vast central chamber that defied physics as the Arcturians understood it. Suspended gardens spiraled upward, their plants thriving in what appeared to be zero-gravity pocket. Waterfalls flowed in impossible patterns, their paths forming complex mathematical sequences that seemed to power surrounding machinery. This is our primary education hub, Professor Torres explained, leading them toward a group of children manipulating holographic ecosystems. We believe in teaching integration from the earliest ages, showing how natural systems can be enhanced rather than replaced by technology. Venx's analysis nodes spun in confusion as they passed what appeared to be a quantum computer grown from crystallized DNA structures. But why maintain such secrecy? Your achievements could revolutionize galactic technology. Dr. Romano exchanged knowing looks with her colleagues. We learned something vital during our surface exodus. Most spacefaring races follow a similar pattern. They develop technology to overcome and control natural limitations. We chose a different path. We asked ourselves, what if the limitations aren't problems to solve, but patterns to follow? They entered a research laboratory where scientists were cultivating what appeared to be living metal, its surface rippling like mercury but structured like plant cells. Consider this, Dr. Carr said, gesturing to the experiment. Rather than mining metals and forcing them into shapes we need, we grow them in forms that naturally want to conduct energy or provide structural support. It requires more patience but yields far more efficient results, Commander Hassan added. The same principles apply to our defense system. We don't need massive energy shields when we can redirect hostile forces through natural channels, like a river flowing around. Kryn 4, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly asked, "Your children?" Treating it like a game. Of course, Director Blackwood smiled. Play is how humans learn best. We turn complex problems into games, allowing intuition and creativity to guide us towards solutions that pure logic might miss. They observed as one child solved a complex environmental balance problem by introducing an entirely unexpected element, creating harmony through carefully managed chaos. The Arcturian scientists were stunned to see that the solution, while unconventional, was mathematically. This is why we've waited to reveal ourselves, Dr. Romano explained. Our methods often appear chaotic or inefficient to outside observers. We needed to achieve a level of development where our results would speak for themselves, where our achievements would outweigh the instinctive dismissal of our seemingly primitive approach. As they continued their tour, Zyra-9 noticed something extraordinary. Despite being underground, the city felt more connected to nature than any surface civilization she'd ever. The humans hadn't just survived below ground. They'd created a new definition of advancement, one that measured progress not by dominance over natural systems, but by harmony. Director Blackwood, she said carefully, I believe we have as much to learn from you as you do from us. The director's eyes twinkled. That, chief researcher, is exactly why we finally decided to say hello. The crisis began with a simple mistake. One of the junior Arcturian researchers, fascinated by a bioengineered water purification system, activated their quantum scanning array despite the earlier. The reaction was instantaneous and catastrophic. The scanner's energy signature collided with the city's phase-shifted infrastructure, creating a cascading resonance that threatened to crystallize entire sections of New Aurora's tunnel. Warning signals pulsed through the bioluminescent warning systems, casting emergency patterns across the vast chain. Shut it down, Zyra-9 cried. But the scanner had entered a feedback loop with the city's systems. The more they tried to power it down, the worse the resonance. Director Blackwood's response was immediate and surprising. She laughed. Well, this is interesting, Dr. Carr. I believe it's time for Protocol Omega. Commander Hassan, please show our guests what happens when we really need to solve a problem quick. What followed was unlike anything the Arcturian scientists had ever witnessed. Instead of rushing to computer terminals or activating emergency protocols, the human team formed a circle and began brainstorming out loud, together. Chaos seemed to reign as multiple conversations happened simultaneously. The resonance pattern resembles a Fibonacci sequence, Dr. Romano called out, her hands dancing through holographic data streams. If we treat it like a growing vine, we can redirect it through the fungal networks, Professor Torres finished. Dante, remember that time we had to deal with the quantum spore incident? Commander Hassan was already coordinating with his team, their movements practiced yet somehow improvisational, redirecting power through the secondary geothermal taps. Carr, can you? Already on it, Doc. Carr responded, his fingers flying over what appeared to be a crystalline growth that functioned as both computer and life form. Isabella, if you modulate the mycological network's frequency. Zyra-9 watched in amazement as the human's seemingly chaotic response resolved into a perfectly coordinated emergency. They weren't following any standard protocol. They were creating solutions in real time, building on each other's ideas with an organic flexibility that defied conventional crisis management. The resonance wave approached a critical section of the. Instead of reinforcing the affected structures, the humans somehow convinced the crystallizing tunnels to continue their transformation, but in a controlled pattern that strengthened, rather than Remark, Vinks whispered, his analysis node struggling to process the speed of human innovation. They're not fighting the problem. They're adapting to it. Director Blackwood nodded, still remarkably calm. The best solutions often come from embracing the chaos rather than trying to control it. Watch this next part. It's my favorite. Dr. Carr had interfaced their living computer with the fungal. The resonance wave, now guided by the city's organic systems, began flowing through the crystalline structures, like water through it. But instead of causing destruction, it was being transformed. Power, Krenfor gasped. They're converting the resonance into usable energy. Waste not, want not, Dr. Romano grinned, monitoring the energy flow. Your scanner's quantum signature makes excellent fuel once you convince it to play nicely with our systems. And there we go. Crisis converted into resources. The emergency lights faded, replaced by the normal bioluminescent glow. The affected tunnels now sparkled with new crystalline formations that somehow made them stronger than before. The entire incident, from start to resolution, had taken less than 15 minutes. How? 09 asked, her outer membrane rippling with disbelief. There was no time to run simulations, no precedent for this type of interference. That's exactly why it worked, Director Blackwood explained. Standard procedures and simulations are useful, but they can also be limiting. Sometimes you need to let go of what you think should work and listen to what the problem is telling you will work. We've found that the universe often suggests its own solutions, if you're willing to pay attention and adapt quickly enough. The Arcturian team stared at their scanner, now integrated into the city's power grid, as if it had always been meant to be there. They had just witnessed something that would revolutionize crisis management protocols throughout the galaxy, assuming anyone would believe their report. In the aftermath of the crisis, the Arcturian team found themselves in what the humans called a reflection garden, a peaceful chamber where bioluminescent flowers responded to thought patterns, creating ever-changing light displays. Director Blackwood had suggested it as the perfect place for processing what they'd witnessed. "We've been watching your civilization for quite some time," Dr. Zara explained, finally breaking her previous silence. "Your scientific achievements are remarkable, but we noticed something interesting. Your species tends to see advancement as a straight line, each new discovery replacing what came before." Zyra 9 found herself mesmerized by a cluster of crystals that seemed to grow in response to her thoughts. "And humans don't view progress this way? We see it more like a web," Professor Torres said, sketching a complex pattern in the air that the garden's plants immediately mimicked with light. "Every solution, whether it's ancient or modern, has its place. Sometimes the oldest answer is still the best answer. It just needs to be understood in a new context." Dr. Carr demonstrated by placing a simple mechanical watch next to one of their quantum computers. "Take timekeeping. Yes, we can measure picoseconds with quantum accuracy, but sometimes you need the reliability of gears and springs. Instead of abandoning mechanical technology, we found ways to enhance it. Its gears are grown from living metal, self-repairing and adapting to maintain perfect accuracy." During the crisis, Venks observed, his analysis nodes still processing the event. "Your team didn't follow any standard emergency protocols. Yet everyone seemed to know exactly what to do." Commander Hassan smiled. "We train our people to understand principles rather than memorize procedure. When you grasp why something works rather than just how, you can adapt that knowledge to unprecedented situations." "But the chaos," Crinfor protested weakly. "The multiple conversations, the seemingly random connect." "Seemingly random," Dr. Romano emphasized. "Human brains excel at pattern recognition, especially when we work together. What looks like chaos to an outside observer is actually a complex problem-solving network in act. We're sharing ideas, building on each other's thoughts, making connections that might not be obvious in a more structured approach." Director Blackwood gestured to the garden around them. "Consider this space. To your eyes, it might appear unnecessarily complex. Why not just install standard illumination?" "But these plants don't just provide light. They clean the air, respond to emotional needs, and help maintain the psychological health of our citizens. Every element serves multiple purposes, creating a web of benefits that far exceeds the sum of its parts." 09 watched as the garden's patterns shifted in response to their conversation, creating a visual representation of their exchanging ideas. She realized that human technology wasn't less advanced than Arcturian achievements. It was advanced in a fundamentally different. "Your entire civilization," she said slowly, "is built on this principle of integration, not just between nature and technology, but between past and present, logic and intuition, individual and community." "Exactly," Dr. Zara beamed. "We didn't go underground just to survive. We did it to learn to understand how natural systems work from the inside." Every challenge became an opportunity to develop new ways of thinking about progress. The garden's lights pulsed gently, forming patterns that somehow managed to be both organic and mathematically precise. Just like everything else in New Aurora, it represented a perfect balance between natural evolution and intentional. "I believe," Venk said, his voice modulator conveying deep respect, "that the Arcturian Science Council will need to create an entirely new classification. Your civilization doesn't fit any of our existing categories for technological advance. Director Blackwood's eyes twinkled with amusement. Perhaps that's the most important lesson we can offer the galaxy. True advancement isn't about fitting into existing categories. It's about having the courage to create new ones. As the garden's lights danced around them, the Arcturian team began to understand that they hadn't just discovered a hidden civilization. They'd discovered a new way of thinking about civilization itself. The formal ceremony establishing diplomatic relations between Earth's underground civilization and the Arcturian Science Council took place in New Aurora's Grand Synthesis, where streams of quantum data flowed through crystalline columns like digital waterfalls. The contrast between the two delegations couldn't have been more striking. The rigid, crystalline forms of the Arcturians beside the humans in their flowing, adaptive garb. Today marks more than just an alliance. Director Blackwood addressed the gathered representatives. It represents a fundamental shift in how we think about technological advance. The galaxy has long assumed that progress means leaving the old behind. We propose a different path, one of integration and synthesis. As if to demonstrate her point, Dr. Kaur unveiled their gift to the Arcturian delegation, a hybrid navigation system that combined quantum computing with evolved crystalline structure, creating something more reliable and adaptable than either civilization had achieved. Our methods may seem unconventional, Professor Torres explained to the astonished Arcturian scientists, but they offer solutions to problems your civilization has struggled with for generations. Just as your structured approach to research can help us refine our more experimental tendency. The transformation in the Arcturian team was Zyra 9, who had arrived expecting to catalog ruins, now stood explaining to her superiors how human insights into biological computing could revolutionize their entire approach to technological development. Venks had already begun collaborating with Dr. Romano on a project to adapt human phase shift technology for space travel, potentially revolutionizing interstellar transit. Even the skeptical Kren 4 had found herself deeply impressed by humanity's educational particularly after watching a group of children solve a quantum engineering problem through what appeared to be an elaborate game of hopscotch. We don't seek to replace your technology, Commander Hassan assured the Arcturian Council. Rather, we offer a complementary perspective, one that might help the galaxy face challenges we haven't yet imagined. The signing of the accord was accompanied by a display of synchronized bioluminescence throughout New Aurora's vast network, the city itself seeming to celebrate the historic. As the ceremony concluded, Director Blackwood pulled Zyra 9 aside with a knowing, "You know," she said, "there's another reason we chose this moment to reveal ourselves. The galaxy is changing. New challenges are emerging that can't be solved by traditional means alone. Sometimes the best way forward requires looking backward." Zyra 9's outer membrane rippled with understanding. Humanity hadn't hidden out of fear or weakness, but to perfect their unique approach to civilization. They had grown stronger by growing differently, creating something entirely new by refusing to abandon the accord. Wasn't just a diplomatic document, it was a blueprint for a new kind of progress, one that valued diversity of thought as much as technological achievement. As the celebrations continued around them, both species knew that this was just the beginning of a partnership that would reshape their understanding of what it meant to advance. 5 years after first contact with New Aurora, the galaxy had changed in ways few could have. The Arcturian Science Council's annual conference, once a rigid showcase of linear technological progress, now featured innovations that merged ancient wisdom with cutting-edge science. Director Blackwood's keynote address, transmitted from Earth's newest surface installation, a verdant arcology that proved humans hadn't abandoned the upper world, merely waited for the right moment to return, drew unprecedented attendance. Zyra 9, now heading the joint Human-Arcturian Research Initiative, had watched her entire species transform. Their cities began incorporating living architecture. Their research methods embraced intuitive leaps alongside structured analysis, and their children learned through a combination of traditional study and what humans called serious play. Yet what fascinated other galactic civilizations most wasn't the visible changes in human and Arcturian society. It was the persistent rumors about what humanity hadn't yet revealed. Every time a visiting delegation discovered something new about Earth's hidden capabilities, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were still only seeing the surface of human potential. As Director Blackwood liked to say, with that characteristic human smile, "The best innovations are the ones you don't know you need until exactly the right moment.